Welcome, 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 welcome. It's your boy Mike, and this is my Raptors Weekly Podcast. Now, in this Raptors Weekly Podcast, we could have made this video like a couple of days. We could have made this video on Friday. Because the whole podcast is going to be about the same thing that everyone's been talking about. But I just felt like, sometimes you needed some time to kind of listen to some other people, listen to Masai's press conference, and then kind of trying to figure out what the hell just happened. The Raptors officially have, some will say let go, some are saying mutually, but Nick Nurse is no longer the coach of the Toronto Raptors. What people are saying already, and I get it, and that's where I'm going to start, So make sure you like and subscribe, follow on all platforms. The thing is, that people have talked about is that in the past 10 years, the Raptors have been really good. They've had two Coach of the Years in Dwayne Casey and Nick Nurse. They fired both of them. You fired Dwayne Casey because you weren't getting over the hump. You fired Nick Nurse. See, that's where I gotta talk. We gotta talk, right? The firing of Nick Nurse, I think it had to have been mutual. There's no way that it wasn't mutual, or it really wasn't Nick Nurse going like, "Hey guys, I just heard about a coaching vacancy in Houston where I kind of got my start, and I want to go back." Because when he made those comments, I think it was against the Philly. When he made those comments, that's when everyone was like, "Okay, this is kind of weird. Like, who passes comments like that? Who literally says I've been here for 10 years, so I kind of think it's time." Like, he basically said, like, I think I'm okay now. I had my time. I've lost the group. I've lost the team. You can tell that something like that happened. Because it wouldn't make sense. Because ultimately speaking, the Raptors have had, first year, they won a title. Second year, which I love that season, was a pretty good year. Lost to Boston in the bubble, which a lot of people would say if it was Game 7 in Toronto, it could be different. Because that's not a Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that's like the way they are now. That's still a growing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think you could be saying something different. I don't know. The home whistle's a thing. The third year was the Tampa season. So you got Scotty Barnes. The fourth year, you guys were the fifth seed, and then you faced a Philly team that was probably better than you, and you couldn't beat them because you didn't have a center. So, okay, and then this year wasn't a good year. So ultimately, besides the Tampa year, he said 3 out of the 4 seasons go pretty well. Go pretty well. So we're really letting him go, or he's really leaving after one bad season. Which has to raise the ultimate question: was there a bigger issue in Toronto? And I think everyone would agree that there was clearly a disconnect in Toronto. There was clearly a leadership problem in Toronto. There was clearly a role definition problem in Toronto. There was something wrong in Toronto. This year, out of all years, you heard so much more rumors. I mean, you've never heard the Raptors talk this much, ever. The Raptors have always been a quiet organization. You don't really know what's going in and out. This year, we heard that people are not that happy with Scotty's development. That OG wants a bigger role. That Nurse is losing the locker room. Like, we never heard anything. We didn't hear anything. But this year was different. This year it seemed a little bit more like I thought that, a lot of people, Zach Lowe just said that the Raptors probably were the most disappointing team. I think he's saying that right now. I think if you had to review it, they would be number one. I think there's like other teams that are disappointing, like Dallas, like the Pelicans. But yeah, a lot of people believed in Toronto. A lot of people believed that Toronto was gonna have a good season this year. A lot of people believed because of last year. And I gave my 5 reasons. And, one of the reasons I mentioned that was not in part of my 5 was like the lack of growth in like a Precious Achua. Some would say lack of growth in Scotty. I think Scotty had an okay season. He passed more. He scored about the same. So that's fine. Once again, I didn't have any expectation of Scotty. You guys having a high expectation of Scotty, that's a you guys thing. I did not have high expectation of Scotty because that wouldn't make any sense. How could he was young? Like he's young. He's 21. Even Masai had to say it. The man is 21. Like what kind of expectations did you have of Scotty? It's one of those things where sometimes you got to take a step back and realize like he's still growing as a player. But this Nick Nurse thing is so. I think the word is a little baffling. I think some would say this Nick Nurse thing is more like, was this the inevitable? Was this bound to happen? This had to be mutually agreed upon. You know, I think the two main reasons that I would say that the Raptors had let go of Nick Nurse is one, the player development. I said it in my podcasts before. The one thing we don't talk about is the lack of development of the young guys. Masai said he still believes in and Delano and still believes in Malachi. So if he's saying that, that means he kind of wants them to play. See, and I think other people have said it, like, if this team had 41-41 record, but we gave, Delano a try, Malachi a try, at the time I was saying give, and a lot of people I know now would probably disagree with me. I'm saying still give Khem Birch the 10 minutes. It's like still give these guys like quality time. There was none of that. Delano Banton had a 27-point game this year. Almost had a triple double this year. And didn't play any minutes the following game. These young guys, you need to develop. And I know one thing that Masai always wanted to do, and it's hard to do, is to develop and still be good. Like the Raptors in the past tried to develop and still be good. Arguably, they did it though, right? With Kyle and DeMar, JV. Mind you, they still had really good players, and they just had them developing. At one point you had Kyle DeMar, Terrence Ross, JV. So you had some sort of a squad, and then you make the small trades here and there. You get a PJ Tucker one year. You get enough money to get oh my gosh, his name is DeMar Carroll. Corey Joseph. Like you get the money to get these guys. Then you still have a good team while still having growth in these young guys. You heard about a guy named Norm. You're trying to see what he can do. You have some guy named OG, great defender. You're like, okay, let's see what he can do. Pascal, an energy big who started. So somehow you still had the vets, but you had the young guys like trickling in. Right now, this team, funny enough, like the vets are the former young guys and Pascal and Fred, and then you have no one else. Like Otto Porter was gone. Thad Young, I love Thad Young. I've always said, if you want to grow this team and make this team better, make them stronger vets and know what to do, you still keep Thad Young. You put him in the Udonis Haslem role. Make him be in the bench, but like just guide guys. He'll play here and there. He'll truly become like a legend in the Raptors like universe. Because I just think when you have guys like that, it's so meaningful to a team. When you have a bunch of young guys, like I will always say Houston, it doesn't and will not bode well. People look at a team like OKC, they built young, they built through the draft. OKC's done it again. They did the first time they did it again, but remember, they didn't draft Shea. They drafted Giddey and all that stuff. But Shea has been in the league for a while. And the you can never forget that year he spent with Chris Paul of how to be a strong leader. Those things count when you have people to help you become a leader, to help you become mature. And that Chris Paul year with him was vital for his success. Was very vital for his success. Now, listen, that's the one thing that Nick Nurse didn't do. He didn't develop his guys. I think he's all about winning, and we're all about winning. But it's almost at like what cost, right? Like we sometimes in the regular season game went 7 deep, maybe 8 deep, and why not just play the guys an extra? I know Malachi has had some bad games, but it's about confidence. This league's all about confidence. Give these guys the opportunity. Give them the opportunity. That's when you look at guys like, people are talking about, mind you, I find these like the anomaly, especially O'Shea Brissett. I think that's where it comes from. Oh man, if we had an O'Shea, I don't know about that. I think he's a good player. I think could be a good bench guy to come off your bench, energy, whatever. I think all that's fine. But like then we see Utah at one point led the league in 3-point shooting. But my argument is when he was on the Raptors, he was given every opportunity. People are like, "Oh, we need to see more Utah." To me, he was given the opportunity. He didn't do anything with it. He did not shoot the three. I know if you look at his percentage, it looks pretty well. I think it was like 37% last year, but still, he didn't like. He wasn't consistent enough, in my estimation. So, but you look at some guys like that, and you're like, oh man, these guys are growing elsewhere. I always said Justin Champagne is going to score big shots in the playoffs. Right now, he hasn't had that opportunity, but I believe in his game. I believe he can be a really good corner three shooter. He knew that that's going to make it for him. I would love the Raptors to bring him back. Like if you ask me today, every day I change, I'm okay with bringing them all back now. Again, I think with a new coach, with a new direction, I'm okay with bringing everybody back. I want to have a good team, especially if you don't have your draft pick. And you do, technically, it's just top six protected. So you need to go tank. In order to get a like top three pick, you got to have a horrible record and hope the lottery balls fall on your side. And even then, you never know if the draft pick's going to be like that great, you know? As much as you may think you're getting a Luka, you may get a DeAndre Ayton, and who's a good player, but people question him every day. Or you may get a Marvin Bagley, who like was a star in high school, star. So you never know what you're gonna get. And it's funny that draft class people are talking about it being the best ever. I think give it a few years. I think it's because I think it's one of those underrated drafts. I know I'm going on a tangent, but that's one of those underrated drafts that people like. I always think that that Steph Curry draft class was damn good, was really good. But no one talks about it. I think there's certain drafts that like end up good. Like I would say the John Wall draft started off really well and didn't end well. Some drafts like do that for you. The Kyrie Irving draft is pretty good. Kyrie, Kemba, Kawhi, Clay, Jimmy, like that's a pretty good draft. But I think one of the most underrated drafts is that '09 draft with Steph, DeMar, Harden, Drew Holiday, Blake Griffin. That's a pretty good. You have three guys who are currently. I'm not sure. I don't think James Harden is, but you have the two guys in DeMar and Steph who like lead the organization in scoring. Like you have five franchise guys arguably at one point. So it's a good team. It's a pretty good team. Drew Holiday's getting all his love now. So like it's DeMar got a lot of love last year. I think that's one of the more underrated drafts. But that's my thing. Like drafting and tanking doesn't mean everything's gonna go well. You hope that that's the case, but it's not always the case. It's not always the case. So I want this team to be good. Yeah, you want some top end talent and blah blah blah. Yeah, of course you want that. That's the hope of Scotty's growth. You're hoping OG's better. Gary, I don't know. I'm not sure if you bring back Gary, but sometimes I do think you trade OG for a multitude of guys, not just one, multitude of guys. I think potentially Chris Boucher is on the market. I don't know what he can get you. To be honest, I think he may be one of those Gravis Vasquez types trades where you're trading him for like potentially a late lottery and some second rounders. And I like Chris Boucher, but um, and he'd be really good on any team. I think where it comes down to, it's more of just the value he has a high value for his position and his role. So I think you almost kind of trade to get more draft picks, get more guys into the system. And that's what I think the Raptors need. They need more guys in the system. Hence, like the Norms, the Delano Wrights, the Freds. You need more guys in the system in the pipeline to grow. To when it's time for Scotty to be the number one guy, he has vets in an OG, in a Fred, in a Pascal. That's my thought process of. That's why development was so important. But I would say these past few years we didn't see good development. I don't think so. I think we stopped once we won the title. I think we lacked true development. We because when you're trading low, you're trading your draft picks, so you're getting a bunch of second rounders, and you're hoping these late rounders and second rounders are gonna be something, but you never know. I still think Christian Coloco could be like a pretty good defender in the back end. You're hoping that he becomes a good rebounder, and that's all you really need. Like you just need people to know their role. Like we don't need you to be like everything to the team. Just need you to be like pretty good, just pretty good, and be good at your role. Be a star in your role. That's what everyone needs, a star in their role. As I think Chris Boucher's value's high, I think he's a star in his role. Besides Pascal, that man's been the most consistent guy all year. That's why I think his trade value is kind of high to me. Now the second thing, after going on that tangent of development, that I think Nick Nurse, reason why he got let go, and the reason why I think he also just left, he lost the locker room, right? Because I think the way he went about things was not right. I almost think he was trying too hard. There's no way he would have called out Kawhi Leonard the way he called out like Gary Trent. And yes, Kawhi stepped up every single game. So I understand that like there's a difference, but the way Nick Nurse called out his players was poor. At one point, people may not forget this. I think they won't forget this. People were talking about Pascal as if this guy hates Nick Nurse. Everyone's thinking this guy hates Nick Nurse. He hates him. But why would people think he hates him? Because remember that Nick Nurse and Pascal argument in New York? Pascal got suspended a game because of the argument he had with Nick Nurse. It's because sometimes Nick Nurse's approach is a little bit much. I will reflect back on the video I made years ago, which I will always constantly do. His first press conference, he called out DeMar DeRozan. Nick, you're the rookie. You're the rookie. Yes, I get it. You've been in basketball circles for like 20 plus years. No one's questioning your knowledge, your ability to make decisions on the fly. No one's questioning any of that stuff. No one's questioning that you're a great coach. I don't think anyone will ever question. And you brought a title to the team, which I should mention later on. But if I don't, I'm just saying he did bring a title to the team. So it's something you got to remember and think about. But that whole calling players out, you're the in or out, that shit wears down on you as a player. Because at one point you're like, yo, bro, if we're not good enough, why are we still here? Why are we still here if we're not good enough? And that's how I think some of these players felt. If you're Delano, if you're a Malachi, you're thinking to yourself like, man, if y'all don't really believe in me, why am I here? If the coach don't believe me, why am I here? And then you hear the way Masai talks about these guys. Even in last year's opening presser, or I think when he signed the contract, he had mentioned Malachi's name as a guy he wants to see grow. So you can tell that Masai's vision of the team of growth and development was different than Nick Nurse's. And another reason why Masai wants to develop young players, I hate saying it like this, but in the asset management category, there's not a lot of assets when there's no one to trade. When they had the bench mob, they traded Delano and a few other and JV to get a Marc Gasol. They traded a Terrence Ross to get a Serge Ibaka. Those things matter. You need to get all the young guys developed so these other teams who have this random vet on their team, when they have the Eric Gordons on their team, like I said, they got a PJ Tucker on their team. What are they doing? They're gonna trade you them for your young guys because you developed them to the point that you think at one point you feel like their value isn't anymore. This is where it is. And the one thing Masai said that let me get to real quick. He said, and he says before, and this is why you gotta be patient. I think this offseason could be a crazy offseason. There's guys like Trae Young, potentially Karl-Anthony Towns, who people think are gonna say hey, I'm ready to go. I think I've had enough. I think I've had my time here. People are not sure about Miami, which I don't know. Miami's a weird team. Very weird team. So who knows about them? But there's guys that could be in question, And to me, you trade if you ever want to trade Conley Towns, I know Minnesota can't be. They traded a lot for Gobert, but that Gobert market is gone. People aren't doing that. I think the trade market will reset this year. But you're looking at Conley Towns. You're not trading 4 draft picks like the way they did for KD, which now I think about in retrospect was so stupid. Why you trade 4 draft picks? Three, 3 draft picks, maybe two. Like, well, that's a lot of draft picks. I think people are not. They don't care about the draft picks because you can go in and out of them, I guess, so much. But it's a lot of draft picks to give up. Now, for Conley Towns, they who would be nice to pair with Anthony Edwards? OG Ananobi, right? And you can say it actually technically would be Pascal because you can put Pascal at the 4. Pascal's not a 5. He'll have thing like it'd be good, but like you're gonna trade Pascal for Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know about that. And I know some would say like Karl Towns is a better shooter, obviously, and some would say he's a better player overall. And I can see your point in that. I'm a Pascal, like I love Pascal, but I can see your point in all that. Now in saying that, I don't know if I would do that trade. I may trade OG, and you may have traded OG and someone else for a Karl Anthony Towns and 2 draft picks. You know, maybe you have to trade if you trade 24, you got to trade 26 and 28. Maybe you do for Karl Anthony Towns, sign him to a contract, but then that's a lot of money you're putting into Pascal and Karl Anthony Towns. A lot of bigs, but then you still got Pirtle, right? Like it's a lot of factors that this Raptors team has, and it's hard to say. But that's just my tangent of what Masai was saying. But like I said, when Nick Nurse was talking and doing all that, he just went all over the place, right? He was just it's like he loved them one day and hated them the next day. Loved them one day, hated. There was no consistency in that, and that's just what we saw. Of course, in the locker room, it could have been something totally different, but sometimes Fred will give you hints of what's going on. For him to say we need a new identity, when the Raptors said they knew an identity before, everyone thought that it was just Dwayne Casey's about to get fired this year. But really, what they did was just they gave the reins more to Nick Nurse as the assistant coach. So this year, everyone's saying we need more identity. We could have just said we are gonna stop playing this like crazy defense and play more controlled offensively, and we'll play more with like proper lineups and things like that. But I don't think that was the case. I don't think that was the case. They they felt like they needed a whole new everything. That's why some are saying they may trade everyone, but I don't think they're gonna trade everyone. That's kind of crazy. You can't trade everyone and not have a draft pick. You can't trade everyone and trade it for Pirtle. That wouldn't make sense. I think what Masai wants to do is try to get shooters and still have a bunch of young players to develop and grow. And I'm about to make a video of the Raptors and how it wouldn't make sense for them to get a top coach and still want to be developed. You don't get Ime Udoka and say, yes, we're going to develop for 3 years. That doesn't make sense. You get Ime because you want to grow. Certain coaches you get because you believe that they can take you to a certain spot. They got Quinn Snyder from in Atlanta because they believe that he can get them to a certain spot. That's why you got him. The Jazz have a young coach. OKC has a young coach because you're gonna grow. You're gonna grow with this team. Emi Udoka came in with Boston thinking that he's gonna help them probably for 1 year. Took them to the finals, but they really thought that he was just gonna. He's probably a 1 year away coach to getting a team to where they need to go. Now he's taken to that team, so you're thinking very highly of him. So you don't want to do that. Like when Dwayne Casey came to Toronto, the expectations wasn't for him to like do what he did. The expectations were for him to grow this team and see what happens. Those are the two reasons why I think Nick Nurse got let go. Didn't develop, and the communication was just trash. Absolute trash. Could have been a better communicator with his team. Now, the one thing that I've heard people say is that Nick Nurse is the best Raptors head coach of all time. I get it because of the fact of he won a title with the team. And who knows if it was Dwayne Casey? Dwayne Casey probably tell you, yeah, no, I would have done the same thing. Who knows? It's so by now. Um, but I would say I like Dwayne Casey a lot. I think that the team was good. It was consistent. They just kept losing to LeBron. So I don't really blame Dwayne Casey there. They just kept losing to LeBron. It comes down to the fact that if LeBron was just like, if he like, if his game just died down a little bit, maybe the Raptors would have won. But honestly, it's just like they just couldn't beat LeBron. They could barely take a game against LeBron. So that's within itself. That was a problem, and they blamed Dwayne Casey for it. I didn't want to make this too long because I know it's about Nick Nurse. A lot of it was about Nick Nurse. I already went 25 minutes. I can't believe that. But I want to say something about if Nick Nurse does go to Houston, then Raptor fans like that was always planned. Then if he goes to Houston, I would I wouldn't be annoyed because like do whatever, honestly. But I would I would almost question his mentality for I don't know the latter half of the season or even the beginning of the season because yes he wants to win and I agree. But I also think if he wants to win, why would he go to Houston? But there's still rumors of James Harden coming to that team, so it seems like they're trying to build something in Houston low key. But all I'm saying is that why, like why, why would he go there? You know, why would Nick Nurse go to Houston? I don't think Houston's a good team, and they have a bunch of young guys, and he wants to win. So if he wants to win, why would he go to Houston? But if he does go to Houston, I'm just thinking that's kind of like pretty shitty because it almost seemed, and the rumor happened in like December about him going to Houston. So if this rumor's happening in December about you going to Houston, that means you kind of had it already planned. Like you already knew that you want to do this, and that's what kind of like gives me a side eye. Did you always plan on doing this? Was your plan always to not be the Raptors coach at one point? So that's something I think about. I definitely think about it. I'm like, what was his ultimate plan? I don't know. I don't know. I just if he goes to Houston, I would question a lot of things. I'll question a lot of things of how he handled this season, and really was it like one foot out the door. It's kind of like that when Durant was with the Warriors. The players kind of knew he was leaving, and that year that you knew he was leaving, you knew like everyone was kind of the Draymond and Durant fight happened. It just seemed like a lot of arguments happened more that year that just didn't end the way they wanted to, and it makes you think. And my question is like, was this always the plan? And if it was, I kind of hate that. I kind of hate that a lot. So, but yeah, that's really it from me. Thank you so much for listening. Like and subscribe. Nick Nurse is gone as coach. I don't know who to expect to be the coach. I don't know what they're looking for. I may maybe talk about like some coaching candidates next week, but who knows? But I'll talk to you guys soon. Subscribe, like, comment, and peace.